I'm going to teach you the scientific way to become more charismatic. This video isn't going to be some sort of tips and suggestions only, but rather it's going to be more based on pure science. There has been a lot of studies and experiments done about charisma to answer questions such as how it works, can it be acquired, and everything else that's related to charisma, and summarized in this little book, The Charisma Myth. So in this video, we are going to look at what science has to say about charisma. So hit the subscribe button and enjoy the rest of the video. Back in the 19th century, when British Empire was at its highest peak, the fight for the prime minister position was between William Gladstone and Benjamin Disraeli. So whoever won was going to rule half of the world. And the very last week before the election, both men happened to take the same young woman out to dinner. Naturally, the press asked her what impression that the rivals had made on her. She said, "After dining with Mr. Gladstone, I thought he was the cleverest person in England. But after dining with Mr. Disraeli, I thought I was the cleverest person in England." Guess who won the election? It was the man who made others feel intelligent, impressive, and fascinating, Benjamin Disraeli. So charisma is basically making others feel in certain way so that they like you, trust you, and want to be led by you. So the question is, how to do that? Well, that's where science begins. Charisma can be broken into three main parts: presence, power, and warmth. So let's first talk about presence. Have you been in a situation when you were talking to someone, but he or she wasn't really paying attention? He wasn't really listening. You could clearly see in their faces that they're busy thinking about something else, but they try to look like they are listening so that you don't get offended. But how did that make you feel? Angry, annoyed, perhaps pissed off? I think all what you wanted to do is to take the shit out of them, because that really feels disrespectful. It makes us feel less important, which is what we really hate. And that's the first thing that determines whether someone is going to see you charismatic or not. Because if they don't feel your presence, they will never like you or trust you, no matter how good you are. And the problem with that is that you can't fake it. Lack of presence can be easily seen on your face because people are good at reading facial expressions. But here's the good news. Presence is a learnable skill which you can learn with some practice and patience. And it's pretty simple. All what you need to do is to have a moment-to-moment awareness of what's happening around you. It means paying attention to what's going on rather than being caught in your own thoughts. The problem with us is that we just love thinking, daydreaming, worrying about other things. So even if we are in a conversation with someone, something else might still be going on in our minds. And the reason for that is that we have a very short attention. We are easily distracted, especially when we live in a world that encourages distraction. That's why you find always the news giving you false headlines just to grab your attention, because that's probably the only way to do it. And one way to increase your presence is by focusing on your breath. Whenever someone talks to you, for example, take a moment and focus on your breath to get your full attention back to the present moment. Remember that by giving your full attention, the people you are talking to will feel that they are the most important thing at the moment. The second part of charisma is power, the power to influence the world around us. And power can be in different kind of shapes. It could be completely authoritative, where you're holding some kind of high position and you have a direct influence over others. Or it could be indirect, such as having a lot of money, being intellectually or physically strong, or having high social status. All that represents some sort of power. And we naturally look for clues of power in other people, in their appearance, in the way they talk, and most importantly, in their body language. And the more powerful someone seems to be, the more we are attracted to them. For example, you might not be interested in soccer, but if you meet Ronaldo in the streets, you might want to take a selfie with him because his fame makes him look charismatic. It's not necessarily for you to be the most famous person in the world or the wealthiest to seem charismatic, but rather you have to make the other person think that you have some sort of power. For instance, you can dress in such a way that can make you look smart or rich. Now let's move to the final part of charisma, which is warmth. Warmth is basically giving the other person a hope that you might use your power or influence to their favor. It's not necessarily for you to do that. As long as you make them feel like that, that's enough. Don't get me wrong, you don't have to do that directly. It's more about giving them gestures, such as being friendly, nice, sympathetic, that makes the other person feel positively about you. Imagine you meet someone for the first time. You don't have the time to look into their backgrounds. So in most of the cases, you have to make quick guesses. So we naturally look for clues of power and warmth. Expensive clothing leads us to assume wealth. Friendly body language leads us to assume good intentions, and a confident posture leads us to assume the person has something to be confident about. In general, people will tend to accept whatever you show to them. So by simply showing them more of power and warmth, you are increasing your level of charisma. Charisma isn't always about being this super energetic person on the stage. You can be the most boring person in the world and people will still see you as charismatic. And the best example I can give you is Elon Musk. It's absolutely boring to watch this guy speaking. He doesn't have any great speaking skills. But still, millions of people all around the world, including me, see him as charismatic. Guess why? Because he has the power, which are his companies, Tesla and SpaceX, and warmth, which is having this goodwill to impact the world around us positively. So in conclusion, these are the 3 things that make someone charismatic. Use them and you will be one of them. Anyways, now it's your turn. What do you think? What makes someone more charismatic than the other? And who is the most charismatic person you know? I would love to hear your opinion. And as always, thanks guys for watching. Give this video a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button if you want to see more of similar videos. And I will see you in the next one.